Welcome to another episode of the Hidden Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Homer Hargrove, and today we're going to talk about the key to lasting leadership. And this is a place where we want to talk about what it means to grow, to lead, and to step into that hidden potential. And as we do that, we need to look at working on ourselves. Now, I'll be honest that this isn't always the most exciting idea for people, but we often get excited about like these almost like these secrets to unlock, these projects or chasing opportunities, etc. But when it comes to looking in the mirror and asking, what do I need to work on within myself? This often gets uncomfortable, and especially for men, it's one of the top areas that we don't necessarily feel like we need to work on. This idea of like self-help. And we often avoid it with this premise that like, well, I got bigger fish to fry. I'm okay. I don't need to work on myself. This is actually where the most powerful growth begins. Even for me, I think that one of the biggest decisions that I ever made was deciding to start therapy. And I'll be honest that I did not walk into it excitedly. I was very hesitant, very resistant, and I was even skeptical. I would tell myself that things like, I don't really need this. I'm not broken anymore. I'm fine. I didn't. It's not that I didn't think that personal growth mattered, but I always pictured personal growth as in like learning a new skill. And I just thought that I'll figure out these other pieces about myself on my own. But deep down, I think that there was this like level of anxiety and even fear of vulnerability, of what I would unpack, in admitting that maybe I didn't have it all together. And it was also addressing insecurities, this fear that if I have to work on myself, then it's because I'm not good enough. But once we take a step back and look at when I take a step back and look at that moment, it was like in a door that opened in my life that I didn't realize was there. And therapy gave me language for things that I had felt but couldn't articulate. It helped me untangle patterns of thinking that I thought were just the way I am. It gave me space to process emotions that I usually buried under busyness. And the results was that it totally made me a better leader, a better pastor. I became a better husband. I became a better father. It bled into all of my relationships, because when you're healthier on the inside, you show up healthier on the outside. And my patience grew, my communication improved, my ability to present, to actually listen instead of waiting for my turn to speak. All of this deepened, and I realized that working on yourself isn't selfish, it's stewardship. When you grow, everyone around you benefits from it. So now let's talk about why self-work is a non-negotiable. I want us to zoom out and look at, especially as a leader, why we need to take this seriously. The truth is, leadership is overflow. You can't pour into others what you haven't cultivated within yourself. And I would even go a step further, that when we have toxic thinking or toxic behaviors within inside of us, often probe from traumas or poor experiences, even toxic leadership before us, that ends up flowing over to the people you're leading. And if you've ever been in a space where there's a toxic leader at the head that you have to answer to, is a miserable workplace. It's a miserable place to be. And no one considers themselves a toxic leader. Generally, every toxic leader thinks that they're just being real. They're just saying how it is. But at the end of the day, they have some disgruntledness within their own personal self that's bleeding out into their work. And at the end of the day, we want to recognize that if you're not growing, if you're not learning, if you're not healing, then you're leading on empty. And when you lead on empty, that emptiness is going to spill out with that frustration, with impatience, with burnout. And it's these moments that are critical for us differentiating ourselves from unwittingly becoming a leader that we would never want to follow. And again, we've seen these leaders who've stopped working on themselves, that hitting a level of success and decided that they were done learning, done growing. And you can always tell when that shift happens because slowly that influence dries up and they recycle the same old strategies, the same old visions. They stop listening to new voices and they stop being challenged. And eventually, what they built begins to plateau or even decline because their personal growth stopped. But when you make working on yourself a lifestyle, you stay refreshed, you stay sharp, you keep perspective, you remain teachable, and you set this example for people around you that growth never stops. And it's an important principle for us to recognize that the moment you stop working on yourself is the moment that you stop leading at your best. Consider this, that if working on yourself would increase your leadership by 5%, 10%, even though that might sound nominal, I think that it's a way higher percentage than that. But even if it was just 5 or 10%, would it not be worth it to increase your abilities, to increase your interactions with the people you're leading? Think about it like that. Like people would, a lot of companies would kill for an opportunity to enhance productivity or effectiveness by those kinds of margins. So now let's talk about different methods of personal growth. This is a really practical spot for us, and working on yourself doesn't look the same for everyone. I'm not trying to be this, a therapy advocate. There are many different ways that you can invest in your growth, and honestly, you need more than one. For me, that therapy was huge. It was the monumental tool that exponentially made a difference in my life. But I've gone through all these other ones too before, and there's still times where there's still that I use today. Therapy was just one of those major ones that definitely elevated my leadership to another level. But for some of you, it might be as simple as reading. Like if you're not a big reader, try just starting with a book. When you open yourself up to new ideas, new stories, new frameworks, you're stretching your way of thinking. And maybe you've just never been a reader. Yeah, I have mild dyslexia, so reading is actually hard for me. But whether it's reading, there's other times where having an audiobook can really replace that form of reading that helps me to retain better, often better than when I'm just reading page by page. For others, it's mentorship. Having someone further along in the journey who can call you out, who can encourage you, who can help you see your blind spots is definitely invaluable. It's one of the best things that you could do for your leadership, especially early on, to be able to have somebody to ask, what would you do if you were in my shoes? And they can help catapult you forward instead of you having to drudge through all of the mistakes that most people have already made. For others, it might just be spiritual growth, like prayer, journaling, even like going in depth to your faith. These aren't just religious checkboxes. These are disciplines that ground you, that help keep your perspective clear and connect you with something bigger than yourself. Even when it comes to like this idea of faith, there's so many studies that show how it can affect people in such a deep way. Even like for recovery work, I go to recovery centers every week, and they're going through so many checkboxes, so many self-help methods, and yet I hear time and time again that the spiritual implement is the thing that they've been missing. They're describing to me this spiritual connection is what really took them over the edge in their recovery. So again, don't sell yourself short on your spiritual growth being something that affects your leadership growth. And now let's not underestimate our physical health. The way that you treat your body it affects your energy, your clarity, and even your patience. If you're constantly exhausted or running on fumes, it's going to affect how you show up as a leader, as a spouse, as a parent, as a friend. And even for me, on the days that I speak, whether it's at church, recovery center, etc., those are days where I'm specifically going to work out. Those are days I'm going to specifically do a cold plunge because it makes me feel that much more alert, that much more awake. I'm planning to eat healthy the night before. I'm not wanting to eat something that upsets my stomach the morning of or the night before. I'm conscious of how my physical health will affect how I lead or how I perform that day. Again, going back to this idea is like, why do a cold plunge the day of? What's the big deal? Does it really make a difference? For me, if it makes even a 5% difference, a 10% difference, it's something that I want to explore. And I think that you should too. And finally, community. Sometimes working on yourself happens in the presence of others. When you surround yourself with people, people who challenge you, who inspire you, who can hold you accountable, who can even just be friendly, just being able to let your hair down. This growth happens naturally. And I think that the red flags of life, whenever someone is going through a dark season or a depressing season, the red flags is usually when they isolate themselves. And especially as leaders, when we're going through a difficult patch to where we are having a tough time being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, we'll often isolate ourselves and we end up thinking that we're just trying to focus, but we're really just burning ourselves out at a quicker rate. We need community. No one is meant to do life alone. Community is an incredibly valuable aspect, especially as a leader, because the higher your leadership becomes, the lonelier it tends to feel. Even look at kind of like the intro levels of leadership often becomes like just becoming a parent. That you become a parent of a leader of your child, and almost immediately your social life is cut, your community is cut, and it can feel really isolating. Well, the same goes for our practical leadership roles. Now, the point isn't for us to have everything perfect. The point is for us to keep asking ourselves, how am I working on myself right now in this season? Because if the answer is I'm not, then everything else in your life is going to feel that level of stagnation. Now, I want us to take a moment to consider the ripple effect, because like I keep saying, these different things of working on oneself it doesn't just stay with you, but it bleeds into these other areas of your life. It ripples to the other areas where it's not just work, but it's you as a husband, wife, father, mother. And when you work on yourself as a leader, your team gets the healthiest, clearest version of you. Your family gets the healthiest, clearest version of you. And you stop leading from a place of insecurity and you start leading from a place of confidence. And when you work on yourself, everything else is going to cascade or compound on top of each other. And it goes from our team to our marriages, to us as parents, to even our friendships, where everything is getting better. And the opposite is also true. If you don't work on yourself, it's going to ripple all throughout your relationships. The people around you will end up carrying the weight of these unresolved issues inside of you, and they pay for the growth that you are refusing to do. Someone is always going to pay for that our lack of growth. The question is, will it be you putting in the work right now, or the people around you who are paying for the lack of resolve that you have later? So again, we covered a lot today, but the bottom line is to never stop working on yourself. Whether it's therapy, mentorship, prayer, reading, fitness, accountability, find the things that help you to grow and stick with them. Don't settle for where you are, and don't assume that because you've reached a certain level of success or even just stability, don't think that you've arrived. The best gift that you can give to the people around you, your team, your spouse, your kids, your friends, is a healthier, wiser, growing version of yourself. So I hope that this message encouraged you today. If it did, please leave a rating and review so that others can be able to see this show in their feed. But until next time, have a great life. Well, there you have it. I hope that this episode was meaningful and edifying for your leadership and your growth within your ministry and organization. Could you do me a favor? Could you leave a rating and review for this podcast? It'd really help me out and help others be able to see this show in their feed. You can also visit homerhargrove.com to be able to learn more, connect, or become one of our supporters. Until next time, have a great life.